Thank you for tuning in to the Into the Classroom series produced by Mental Health California, sponsored by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Pod at 7. I'm Tex Wambui here, peer leader with Brother Be Well. I'll be your host tonight. Welcome to everybody. Before we start, I want to give a special thanks to Mental Health California and Blue Shield of California, Blue Sky Initiative for supporting this program. I'd also like to give a thank you to our peer leaders, clinicians, youth mentors, producers, and of course, you, the audience, for being here. Just some quick reminders as we get the day going. This is a safe and respectful space, so no cursing, no stigma, no shame. Everyone here is valued. We'll have a short survey and sign in later in the program, both tied to gift cards. So watch the chat for some trivias and some giveaways. And also, please remember to sign in. The sign-in sheet will be placed at the end, and it closes at 8:30 p.m. sharp. So we'll start off and get it going, and I'll pass it on to Alexios to kind of give us the Pod at 7 overview.
How's it going, everybody? Lovely to have you guys here. In another Pod at 7. So, have you ever laughed at a joke that wasn't really funny or stayed quiet while someone was being dragged online? Those moments might seem small, but they leave a mark. Tonight, we're looking at the real cost of bullying, why it happens, and what it takes to stop the cycle instead of adding to the fuel. That's going to be what we're going to be talking about today. Bullying, thinking you're better than somebody, putting people down, how to stop it when you're around it, and how to stop supporting it. Now, I'm going to pass it to Coach Crump now to introduce the topic fully.
Hey, what's up, everybody? So let me ask you all a question. As Alexi just basically asked you all, have you ever laughed? Have you ever seen things like this happen? And I'm sure we all can answer yes. But bullying isn't just a one-time insult or somebody pushing you in the hallway or bumping your shoulder up against you in the hallway that just happened one time. It's actually something that shows up in very subtle ways that's on a consistent basis. And it can be very damaging. It can be a cruel comment in a group chat. It can be a thread on social media where people are just piling on and piling on, of someone who's struggling. It can even be silence when a friend is being put down, where you're just not standing up for them. Research shows that repeated bullying can actually increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and even long-term health challenges by keeping the body in a constant stress response. There's a book, check it out. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. But we also want to talk about another part is that what's equally as powerful is when this whole cycle of bullying can shift when someone actually chooses to speak up, when someone actually chooses to check in with you or set a boundary. So tonight we're going to understand why and how bullying lingers, why it continues, and how every one of us has the ability to create ripple effects of empathy and accountability in our communities. So I'll pass it over to Andre, who will take us to our next part of our conversation.
Yeah, thank you for that, Coach Crump. And I also just want to thank all of you guys for joining tonight. And with that being said, we're going to get your, creative juices flowing here. And so for our icebreaker, the question is going to be, bullying pops off in the hallway. Type the first thing you do in those first 30 seconds to shut it down. No speeches, just action. And, keep this real brief. Try to keep it between, a sentence or less. Bullying pops off, like Coach Crump said. A guy gets bumped in the hallway, a girl gets bumped in the hallway, or books go everywhere. You see a group of people, like bullying somebody. What's the first thing that comes to your guys' mind to shut it down? Kenji, you said step in. Javia, you said help. Step in is definitely the first thing. You gotta take that action. There's not a lot of time to think. You kind of just got to step in and let that person know that they're not alone. The more support somebody has, the less likely they are to be bullied. You don't see groups of 5 getting bullied by, groups of 3 or 4. The more support and the more people that are with somebody, the less likely they are to get bullied, and the more help they have. Mariana said, let an adult know. Yeah, that's, amazing. You're at school. You kind of want to make sure that the people and teachers know what's going on the campus. So, you got to go let an adult know as well. You guys need to keep dropping your responses, keep that creative flow going. And we're going to put a topic media in the chat, healing from trauma.
Hi, everyone. My name's Taylor Trotter, and I'm an associate marriage and family therapist and associate professional clinical counselor working with HearU.org. And today I'm here in partnership with Brother Be Well to provide an overview of just ways to heal from trauma. Before we go into that, though, let's talk about exactly what is trauma. So, trauma is any type of distressing event or experience that can have an impact on one's ability to cope and function. So, trauma can result in emotional, physical, and psychological harm. And many people will experience some kind of traumatic event, from the unexpected death of a loved one to even a motor vehicle accident at some point in their lifetime. And again, this is a spectrum in terms of what that traumatic experience can be. So, typically, when we talk about treatment options or healing from trauma, therapy is a big one that is discussed, and there are therapeutic approaches that specifically focus on those who have experienced trauma and how it affects their day-to-day functioning, as well as just processing with a therapist in a space that is non-judgmental and welcoming for you to share what's happened and gain some coping skills on how to navigate it. Now, as for some of our day-to-day coping, this can look like, just for one, validating your feelings. So you're not obligated to go run to someone and explain exactly how you're feeling if you're not comfortable in doing that. However, it's important for us to remember that we don't need to push away those feelings. Validating them is very important. Finding a support group. There is a sense of healing in connecting with others who can empathize and understand your experience. Maybe not to the same degree, but they have their own experiences and can connect with you as you go through your healing journey. Taking time for yourself to just deal with what you're feeling. So, implementing some mindfulness or grounding. We can't expect for those feelings to go away overnight. However, by taking time to implement these routines, it can be really helpful to provide some stability, as well as some coping skills maybe that we didn't have before. So, just checking in with your body. How are you feeling? Being present in that moment, recognizing that you're safe in that moment. What can you control? Things like that. Now, taking care of your body is another thing. So, eating nutritious meals, trying to get enough rest at night, and engaging in physical activity can be really helpful in our routine as well. And spending time with friends and family. So, even though you might feel like you need to be alone navigating these different events or things you've experienced, isolating can make it more difficult to just deal with the effects of the trauma overall. So allow yourself to lean on people, because there are those who really care about you and want to support you and have you let them in. The biggest thing I'd say is just having a sense of routine. So that stability will provide some predictability in your life as you're going through finding ways to heal from trauma. And again, my name is Taylor Trotter with HearU.org, reminding you, brother, be well.
Thank you, Taylor, for providing such a well-rounded explanations of what trauma is, but also provide a well-rounded way to care for yourself, both mentally and physically. And now that we've done that, if our producer can launch our first poll, we want to get your input on some of the things that we discussed about. So one of the topic that is brought up a lot, especially in the space like in high school or college, is would you intervene if someone is being bullied? And we want to ask you, what would give you the most confidence to step in and stop bullying? Personally, I was a very, very small and skinny kid in high school, so I don't know if I would have done that back in the day. As a 35 years old CrossFitter, yes, absolutely. But there's many factors that play into that decision. But there are some of the choices. Knowing that a teacher or staff member will back you up, having a friend step in beside you, training in bystander skill and de-escalation words, an anonymous reporting tool that you can use afterward, or if you already feel confident stepping in, go ahead and put in those answers for us. And we want to see what the results are. So 13% of our participants said that having a friend step in beside me. Isn't that very reassuring? I think like strength in number is truly is a thing where you feel like you're being backed up by someone. For me, like knowing a teacher or staff member will back me up, that is also a good answer. However, like just anecdotally looking at like my experience as a high schooler and being bullied for being gay and for being Asian and being an immigrant who didn't speak English well, a teacher or staff member are not always by your side. But having a friend, who care about you, who kind of like stick with you through, stick and stone kind of situation is really, really important. So I totally agree. There's I did not think that training in bystander skills and de-escalation words would be useful. I mean, I get it depends on the age that you are being trained, because as a 35 years old, like we get de-escalation word training and just de-escalation skills in general because we work in healthcare. I felt like a lot of time it's not realistic because of the situation that they put these scenarios in. But if your school can provide that kind of training, great. An honest reporting tool, there's a reason why it's the least popular answer, right? Because a lot of time we as students feel like these reporting tools go nowhere and there's no follow-up. And I can feel you for that. And then there's 5 of you who said you got confident stepping in. I'm wondering, like, for me, maybe I would just too afraid, but are these like the bigger guys that are, girls who have skills that like can defend themselves if they have someone try to get physical with them, or what is the situation? Let's hear from the team. Andre, you are definitely a bigger guy. So would you feel confident stepping in because you're already a big guy and people would not mess with you, or because you feel like you have skills that can help de-escalate the situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, being a bigger guy, especially getting back, in high school and then especially in college, it's more like you said, kind of strength in numbers. I wasn't rarely kind of just walking around by myself a lot, and me being, a football player and a captain and even playing basketball, running track, and kind of always having friends, even if I was like walking around just by myself, I was always associated with other people. Um, to where, yeah, I'm a bigger guy, so where that kind of deters people, but people also kind of knew like, oh, that's Dre on the football team. It wasn't like, oh, that's just some random guy kind of walking down the hallway. To where I definitely had a good friend group that I could trust, and they could trust me as well. So I would feel confident stepping in, because I know that my core group and my friends have my back, and obviously, faith in my abilities as well, and the confidence there. But the main thing would definitely be having a good friend group.
Yeah, if someone's bullying me, I'm standing behind you, man, for sure. I mean, I'm a CrossFitter, but still, I'm standing behind you, or Tex, or Alexio, any of these guys, but me, don't pick me. We're gonna have 30-second or so, 45-second to talk on the opposite end. Not that you cannot take care of yourself, Dr. MT, but as a woman, like you guys are victim of like physical assault more than we care to admit as a society. How would you do in that? What would you do in that situation? And quickly, just would you feel comfortable stepping in?
That's a very difficult question. I think it depends. To be honest, if I'm being completely honest, as a woman, it depends for me on the situation. If I don't have the backup, I'm not a CrossFitter, and even if I was, I'm a 5'3", 115-pound woman. I don't have the upper body strength, unfortunately. I think for me, it would depend on whether I have the backup or not. If I have my friends with me, if I have someone like Andre with me, I am in the front. I'm going in the front and center because I know I'm gonna have people backing me up. But if that is not the case, I doesn't mean I'm gonna back down, but I think it would probably be with words rather than physical stuff. And I know you did say that de-escalation wording doesn't work, but I think for us in that situation where not just me, a lot of the victims who feel like they're smaller, not in maybe physical, but also emotional space, social space, where they feel a bit smaller. Sometimes words are the only weapon, or words are the only tool you can have. um, Whether or not they're effective is, it matters on how you're using them. Sometimes de-escalation works, sometimes it doesn't. Some intervention studies do show that, with the correct tools, correct techniques, 40% of interventions do end up working in school settings. But if you're ever in that position where you don't have your friends, you don't have your authority figures around you, just don't have anybody, I think de-escalation techniques would be a very useful tool to have, speaking from experience.
So I totally agree. I'm not saying that the escalation doesn't work. However, I just think like in the high school environment and being bullied myself, I think that physical violence a lot of time occur, and the escalation doesn't happen until some guy like Andre or Tex or Alexio or Coach Crumb step in and like, hey, knock it off. So it's not that the escalation doesn't work. It just want to remind the audience at home that yes, we want to stand up for justice, but also in this climate where guns are rampant, violence are just encouraged, be careful. Because the last thing you want to do is put yourself in harm's way. And with that said, I'm gonna pass it on to my man Alexio, who's gonna protect me from the bully and do the trivia question.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I'm here for you all. If you guys ever need anybody here, we're here for you guys. But yeah, great conversation. I would say, like they say, when someone's drowning, you don't want to jump in there and save them. That's not always the best thing to do because they're going to drown you too, right? So being educated, and when you're dealing with anyone who has less to lose than you do, it's a lose-lose most of the time. So be very educated with your decisions because they don't have, consequences on yourself, even if you indirectly want them to. But yes, we're gonna hop in to a trivia question. Okay, so we're gonna put it into the chat or trivia, and we're gonna have answers A, B, C, D, and you guys are gonna type. The first person that gets the answer correct, will get an additional $25 gift card. But please make sure your guys' responses are for everybody, not just to one person or producers. So what 2023 movie broke box office records for being the highest grossing video game adaptation? Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Uncharted. So we have a lot of answers. We have a lot of A's. And then once the producers see who responded first. The answer is C, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. And then Alea, congrats. You were the first one to correctly answer C. You'll be getting a $25 additional gift card. So stay, be on the lookout for that. And with that, we're going to move on to, I'm going to pass on to Tex for our video presentation.
Thank you, Alexios. Now we're going to take a closer look at the realities of bullying. So we're about to watch the first half of the Into the Classroom production. It's Not Cool to Bully. So as you're watching, just think about how bullying shows up in your world, online, at school, or in your circle, and the ripple effects it can create. So the video will show up soon.
Just by a show of hands, anyone here, have you dealt with or know someone that is dealing with or has dealt with bullying in the past? I'll raise my hand in there. Yep. Okay. So it's clear that, I knew that I wouldn't be the only one, and it's clear that they're not the only ones. There's probably some folks in the audience as well who have experienced it as well. So let's go ahead and get into our presentation. So now at this age, we should all know by now, again, it's not cool to bully, right? So according to a study that was conducted by the National Center for Education Statistics, approximately 20% of students in the United States reported being bullied during the school year. Now, this translates into about 1 out of every 5 students who have experienced bullying. That same study revealed that cyberbullying affects about 15% of students as well. Let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. And let's look at the mental health aspects of bullying. So victims of bullying can often experience feelings of fear, sadness, low self-esteem, and more. Research conducted by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, also known as the CDC, found that constant harassment and humiliation can lead to the development of anxiety disorders, depression, and even post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. The emotional distress can have long-lasting effects impacting a student's well-being and academic performance. In fact, they're more than twice as likely to contemplate suicide compared to their non-bullied peers. Now, let's look at some physical health concerns. A study was published in the Journal of Adolescent Health that revealed that the victims of bullying are more likely to engage in risky behaviors, such as substance abuse and self-harm. Victims may experience headaches, stomach aches, and sleep disturbances. Chronic stress resulting from bullying can weaken the immune system, making individuals more susceptible to illness. And the fear and anxiety associated with bullying can lead to a decrease in physical activity and an increased risk of obesity. So let's go ahead and move on to our next slide, and let's look at some of the reasons behind youth bullying. And I know Christian kind of got into this a little bit, but we see that children who witness aggression or violence at home may be more likely to replicate these behaviors in other settings, such as school. Some bullies may have underlying mental health conditions, such as conduct disorder or oppositional defiant disorder, which contribute to their aggressive behavior. So, Christian, I wanted to check back in with you and see if you can kind of elaborate a little bit more about some of those reasons behind youth bullying.
Well, first, the more opposite, let's kind of talk about what oppositional defiant is. It's really someone who has an issue with authority. So someone who has an issue with maybe law enforcement or teachers, any person who's in authority. So it could be this oppositional defiant behavior. But in reality, you're looking at a situation where usually it's internalized issues that are occurring. So if someone has opposition defiant, disorder, that behavior, or they're constantly pushing back against authority or teachers, things of that sort, naturally sometimes they want to find a scapegoat or out, or like I said, some type of projection, right? They look for someone to kind of, well, since I can't get my way with the teacher, right, or my dad, or my mom, or my uncle, I'm going to try and get my way with someone who may be perceived weaker than me. So that's where that dynamic comes from. So when I kind of go back to, it's not about you, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at someone at these conditions that occur that may not be very favorable for them. And a lot of times it's usually someone, sometimes the person being bullied, usually in a lot of cases, it's not what you think it is. So sometimes the biggest person in the room or most intimidating person, it can be, especially with internet now, they could be a subject or a victim of being bullied, and you'll never know, because it's sometimes behind the scenes, especially with the internet. So something else to remember, people you would never suspect could be a victim of bullying, and you can't go off of it based on their size or how they look or things of that sort.
Very, very true. Yeah, thanks for that feedback. And, as we look at this issue and look at some of the reasons behind youth bullying, kind of going into our next slide, We know that bullies often target others as a means of boosting their own self-esteem and exerting power and control over their peers, right? Also bullying can be influenced by social hierarchies, economic disparities, a whole host of other issues that might be going on behind the scenes, as well as the fact that students who feel marginalized or excluded may resort to bullying as a way to assert dominance. So those are just a couple of, the reasons why we see some of the youth that are bullying others. Now we can move on to our next slide, and let's talk about young people and cyberbullying. I wanted to kind of ask our young folks here, because we've got folks in high school as well as community college and university, and I'm curious to know, some of their experiences in terms of online. If I'm looking at Erica, because I know you're in high school. Can you maybe talk to us about maybe your experience with cyberbullying, or if you might have known or seen a situation and what that was like?
Yeah, I definitely feel like cyberbullying is definitely much more easier to be done towards like other people than like physically bullying, because it's so easy to just like pick up your phone, take a picture of somebody, type some text on it like from you behind a screen, and then share it on social media, because you don't really like hear yourself saying any of the things, or you don't see yourself like actually doing that. And I think that it's definitely hurtful because people pick up their phones and they see it, or it's behind other people's back. So it's not like completely direct, but it kind of still has those same consequences. And I feel like now that our phones are with us at school, everywhere we go, I think it's much more like imminent and much more pressing as like an issue. And yeah, I just think cyberbullying is a little bit interesting, and it's just super crazy how people can just snap a picture really fast and just write whatever they want on it. And that's, yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. So true. Joel, jump in here a little bit. Talk to me about cyberbullying and, the impacts it can have on our young folks today.
Yeah, so for cyberbullying, I know it can be difficult at some instances. Some people might either send threats to you or talk about you, or saying that they're going to hurt you or your family. So people can definitely get anxiety or stress or feel like they can't go anywhere and start to isolate themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's real good. I mean, we know that these are examples that young people are experiencing online, sending threats or calling them names or commenting bad names under their posts, demeaning words. I've even heard of young folks who engage in creating fake social media accounts to even harass people even further. So it's like they're taking it a step further to continue harassing and to continue the bullying. So, it's true that, it definitely has devastating impacts. And I want to get you, Keyshawn, get in here a little bit and maybe talk about what are some of the effects of someone like who's being bullied themselves. Like, can you maybe talk to us about what a young person might feel, or some of those feelings that might come up for them as a result of cyberbullying?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I would say the problem is bigger than kind of just turning off the screen. I think a lot of people would tell a person, okay, just don't look at it. Well, if the whole school is looking at it and the whole school is talking about it, it doesn't matter whether or not you're engaging with it or not. You're still the subject of the bullying. So it goes beyond, you can't just turn off the screen. And I think the effect of it is, if you notice yourself going to school and feeling like you have to avoid certain people, or feeling like school isn't a safe place, that's just not a cool thing, period, really, because you have to be at school, you have to be learning. We want it to be a safe environment for everybody. So if someone has to feel nervous about being themselves while stepping onto campus, that's just not a good thing at all. And I would say that someone saying something to you online is just as hurtful as something over the top, like an old school 80s movie of like getting shoved into a locker or something. Like, it can hurt just as much emotionally.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Thanks a lot for that feedback from all of you, Keyshawn, Joel, and Erica. That was really good. It's true. The victims of cyberbullying are more likely to experience depression, right? They're more likely to experience anxiety and even suicidal ideation. So the relentless nature of online bullying can certainly lead to feelings of hopelessness, feelings of isolation, as these victims try to struggle to escape that virtual harassment, kind of like what you talked about. It's more than just being able to turn off your screen. There's a bunch of people, and it can be nationwide. Your video, whatever the situation might be, can go viral, and then now everyone's laughing and everyone's teasing you. So it can certainly create those feelings of just anxiety, depression, and all of the things that we talked about. So certainly a huge issue to raise awareness on.
I don't know. I think I know that guy. He looks familiar, but that was a surprise for me. I wasn't expecting to see myself, but I do remember that conversation, and it's still relevant today. These are things that we have to talk about. We have to discuss, because if not, who's gonna discuss, right? So right now, we really want to just kind of open it up, and dig deeper into the conversation. Now we know that schools all have different types of policies and, bullying, anti-bullying policies and what have you. But we know that on paper, those policies sometimes don't quite match up to real life. We know that sometimes we might have a policy that's, in the office or in the whatever student handbook or what have you, but it actually isn't enforced, or it isn't, as impactful as it could be. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So right now, what I'd like to do is invite two of our participants. We'll ask you to raise your hands, and I'll go ahead and call on you, or someone will bring you into the conversation. And my question for you all is, from your experience, wherever you are in your academic journey or in your life, have you found that anti-bullying policies at school actually work, or do they feel more like something that adults say just to check a box? And if they don't always work, why not? What is it that's missing? So we'd like you to, to talk to us about that. So go ahead and feel free to raise your hands or chime in, and we'd like to. I think I see Kevin's hand.
Oh, wait.
So go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Hello. My name is Kevin Hernandez. I think it's not a policy issue. It's more about an environment issue. I think that at the end of the day, a policy can only do so much. That a student at the end of the day has to go back to an environment that's maybe like hateful or very negative, and at the end of the day, they had go back into the school environment and maybe, you know, like unleash maybe like some hate they have or anything like that. So at the end of the day, like the policy can only do so much. So I think it's about the environment. If kids at home were given a great environment and like great spaces and everything, I don't think that bullying would be much of an issue. But that's just my thought or guess, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that kind of actually goes into my next question, and also goes into what I'm seeing other people in the chat talking about, saying making a safe space for students so that they can go and let the school know about what's happening. So I do agree with you. But I want to ask you, Kevin, what's one change that you think would actually make a difference, or make students feel safer? Something that maybe students, teachers, or even friends could do. So I know I heard you talk about, the environment, but what does that look like? Kind of elaborate a little bit more on this. What exactly does that mean?
I think at the end of the day, we have to realize that not everyone has the same families. For example, let's just say that my family is very supportive. That does not mean that someone else's family in this Zoom family is very supportive of them. And if we were to compare my work ethic compared to someone who lives in a negative environment, who doesn't receive support, who doesn't receive reassurance, who doesn't receive emotional reassurance or verbal reassurance or anything like that. I'm pretty sure there's more likely for the kid who doesn't have those resources or doesn't have that great environment to um like perform not as good as the student who has a better environment. But that does not mean that that student who doesn't have a good environment is less of. It just means he is
resource with an opportunity like as I was. I know it sounds a bit tricky, but I also think that like if teachers put like so much passion into their work, if a lot more teachers put a lot more passion into their work and then were to focus on more of students and just pay, I think it would be a big difference as well. So I think it's just so much like it's like a big bubble map we could pinpoint, but at the end of the day, it's all environment.
Wow. No, I think you pretty much summed it up, Kevin. I appreciate you for chiming in. That was an excellent answer. There's no wrong answer. It's all about how you feel and what you think your recommendations are. And I totally agree. Environment is everything. Just to kind of bring it back full circle, because I know we're getting close to our time, and we got some more stuff for you guys. Let's talk about it. Policies, of course, they matter, right? But culture matters more. And as you were saying, Kevin, environment matters more. Schools can write rules, they can have all of these policies and so on and so forth. But it's actually the people, the students, the teachers, the friends, and the families who are the ones that create these safe spaces. So every time you choose to speak up, every time that you choose to step in when someone's being bullied, you're actually building that culture. And that's how change really happens. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Alexios to move on to our next part of our conversation.
Thank you for sharing, Coach Crump, dropping bars, and you too, Kevin Gray. I see your comment in the chat. No, we're going deep into it. I appreciate you guys. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick survey, our Blue Shield survey. Blue Shield is what provides us and it gives us the capability to have the Pod at 7 and continuing to sponsor us. So please make sure to fill out this survey. It's really brief. We're gonna give you guys about 1 to 2 minutes. And it's just filling out the basic information and how this program is going for you guys. So please, the link is in the chat. Go ahead and fill that out. And once you filled it out, please put a thumbs up. So just a quick 1 to 2 minutes. And then in that 1 to 2 minutes, Christian, did you want to pitch in on anything? Did anything catch your attention or just, any remarks?
Yeah, I think a lot of the comments were good, especially when we're looking at the mental health aspects of bullying. When we're talking about how does that impact folks, right? So I think a lot of the comments, do show up in terms of that how it increases, a chance of anxiety, depression. One thing I just wanted to share is that for folks that are already experiencing mental health issues, for students that may be autistic or students that may have ADHD, students who may already have some existing mental health condition, a lot of those students are usually picked on more because of that. So usually as an adult, you usually have, you have spaces where they're more empathetic and nice towards people than adult. But in high school settings and some college settings too, where folks may have, we call it neurodivergent, meaning you learn differently. You may be autistic, you may have ADHD, and those folks may be picked on when you have a disability, for example. So we have to keep in mind that can make their mental health conditions worse. And I want to go back to the size thing. The studies, I know that size, does play a factor in bullying, but studies show that usually the level of force or violence escalates when you're bigger. So if someone sees that you're bigger, that level of force can be escalated. So now I have to pull out a knife because this person's bigger. So I just wondered, and I think someone brought up about safety. I think Patrick brought up about safety, just ensuring that a safety component is looked at and assessed before you try and step in on a fight or a bullying situation, because there are knives and guns in play, and also the environment too. So outside of the school setting, you want to be careful to step in because of those reasons, because someone will or can escalate that level of force, which is bringing in another weapon because people don't fight fair. So yeah, I just want to add that in.
Yeah, appreciate you, Christian. Yeah, I will, die by that. People are not going to be fair. Nothing is, there's no justice. No one will play fair. So, you never know what somebody has and what does not have to lose. So just, help when you can and don't when you can, when you think it's not safe enough. So thank you guys for filling that survey out. If you need a couple more minutes, go ahead. We're just going to hop into another trivia. In the meantime, I'll pass over to Andre to carry us over to that.
Thank you for that, Alexios. And before we jump into this trivia, I do want to say, hold your answers until the question is stated. If you guys put A or BBB or CCC, before the question is stated, you guys are not eligible for the stipend. So I just wanted to put that out there. And with that being said, If you guys are ready, the question is, which rapper released Utopia in 2023? Options are Drake, Travis Scott, Kendrick Lamar, or Lil Nas X. See, there you guys go. Putting in the answers there. Somewhat a reasonable time. Some of you guys, went ahead and went before anyway, but it's all good, So yeah, we'll have a winner announced here shortly. And if you guys haven't answered yet, you can go ahead and keep answering. And also do not forget to fill out that Blue Shield survey, because that is going to be attached to your stipend for these sessions as well. And yeah, I actually don't know the answer to this one. So I'm looking forward to it. The answer is B, Travis Scott. And with that being said, I want to thank you guys for participating, and I'm going to pass it over to Patrick for our second Zoom poll.
Thank you, Andre. So yeah, we are running a little bit behind on time, so we're gonna make this quick. We're gonna launch poll 2 for you guys, and let's select your answer. What's the most damaging kind of bullying today? You have cyberbullying, verbal insult, physical bullying, and social exclusion. So let's see what you guys put in. For me personally, I think that any kind of bullying is damaging depends on the person, because it depends on how you perceive you being bullied and how it's impact that person personally. Any of these form of bullying can certainly cause sometimes irreversible damages. People are taking their own lives. People are choosing to leave this planet because they feel like they don't belong, and they feel like the pressure and the bullying are just too much to bear. I do think that cyberbullying is a lot more rampant compared to the rest of the other 3 forms of bullying, and simply because of the anonymity of it, where anybody can do anything online without any consequences. I'm gonna pull in Christian really quickly. In 30 seconds or less, what has been your experience with bullying when treating patients? And you have any word of wisdom for us?
Yeah, I think one of the most experiences, working with youth and adults too, in the bullying space is, dealing with suicide ideation, the thoughts of hurting themselves, and not just hurting themselves, but physical hurting. So cutting themselves, using razor blades, things like that, harming themselves in terms of those kind of spaces. I think that's one of the main things that I see. And some words of encouragement I would say around that space is to, when you're thinking about harming yourself or harming someone else, you always want to get someone else involved, because the first thing you want to think about is, you're isolated, you think you're by yourself. So the first thing you want to do is always involve another person, whether that's an adult or a counselor or a parent, things of that sort, and try to stay within your peers. So try not to isolate yourself and stay in your room all day and things like that. So those are things I would share if you ever start feeling like that. And also another thing you can do is if you're 12 years old or older, you can consent for therapy yourself or help yourself. So you can always, schedule a doctor's appointment or a therapy appointment on your own if you're 12 years old or older. And you can also use 988, which is a mental health resource phone number.
Thank you so much for sharing, Christian. I thought 988 is being discontinued. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, it is. It is. So until it's discontinued, you can use it. So once that goes away, then it would be 911. Yeah, so 911 would be the number to use. But yeah, 988 is going away soon. So once that is going away, you would want to use 911.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And now I am gonna pass it on to Tex to do our video presentation.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Christian, and thank you to everybody, and also for all you guys' engagement in the chat. So pay attention to what's been going on in the chat so far. We're going to continue into the second half of our videos. It's not cool to bully. And this section dives deeper into the long-term impacts. So as you watch, just think about what it takes to stop the cycle, build spaces where people feel safe and respected. So our producer can go ahead and play the video.
So let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. So when we talk about trying to address these issues, right? When it comes to the growing concern of cyberbullying, many jurisdictions and many educational institutions and districts, they've implemented policies and initiatives to curb online harassment and online bullying. These policies are aimed to create a safer online environment for young people and hold cyberbullies accountable for their actions. This also allows victims and witnesses an opportunity to report instances of online harassment, ensuring that appropriate action is taken. So let's move on to our next slide. So racial bullying. Now, racial bullying is bullying, but it's often really focused on a person's racialized or racial identity. Immigrant and minority students are particularly vulnerable to racial bullying as they may face discrimination and prejudice. This can lead to racial stress and trauma, negatively impacting their mental health and their overall well-being. So when we talk about schools, let's go on to our next slide because the role of schools is important. So, schools should definitely create a safe and inclusive environment where students can feel supported and they can feel protected. And I'm curious to know, I want to ask you, Keyshawn, over at Sac State, if a student were to be bullied, what might that student be able to do to seek help?
I would always say to talk to some faculty member, so some counselor, even a peer counselor that could help you and point you to the right direction. Just mention it to somebody because you'd be surprised who would help you and who's willing to help and how much it can be done. And it might be as simple as maybe you don't want someone else to get involved, but you could tell somebody else and then they can give you tools to deal with it. And that way, you can help yourself deal with bullies and turn them away. So yeah, my main thing is always talk to somebody. You just talk to somebody about it. You have to share your experiences with people.
No, that's definitely good advice, man. Thanks for that. Let me ask you, Erica, a student at Mariloma High School, found out that they're being bullied online, or even harassed. What might that student do, or what resource is available for them?
Definitely counseling. There's therapists on campus. We have those. We also have counselors for every person has there's 4 different counselors, so everybody can have a specific counselor that is focused on them. And then I think another resource that's great is the admin at our school is really open to giving us opportunities to speak to them about any issues we're having with other people, and they take that stuff quite seriously. They take harassment and stuff very seriously. You can get mediation with the people that you're having trouble with, or there's also different contracts and different forms you can sign and different things you can do to help deal with that, face to face, and not just push it off and ignore it. So I think that's good.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Erica. And Joel, talk to me here. What might a student at Los Angeles City College do if they were in this situation?
Yeah, just like Keyshawn and Erica said, we both have, therapists and counselors that can help you with something, or just bullying in general. I believe there's also a hotline that you can call to get, either information, whether how to deal with the situation or talk to authorities to help you with that situation. And also just speaking to someone, like Keyshawn said, there's multiple people that can help you on campus, whether that's with cyberbullying, physical bullying, or just threats in general. So as long as you reach out, someone will be there to help you.
Now, in terms of reducing and stopping these bullying behaviors, providing comprehensive education on bullying is really key. Folks need to know about bullying, their consequences, as well as empathy building, and all of these of which can help to create a culture of respect and understanding. Encouraging students to intervene when they witness bullying can also be effective in preventing and stopping incidents. Now, when we talk about implementing restorative justice approaches, having a restorative justice approach is key. And this can actually help bullies themselves understand the impact of their actions, and they can take responsibility for repairing the harm that they've caused. Schools should certainly foster a positive and inclusive atmosphere where students feel safe to report bullying and seek support from trusted adults, many of which our young folks have already recommended here today. Christian, I want to get you in here as well. Can you talk to us about restorative justice and how this approach might help bullies themselves understand their actions?
Yeah, I think the first thing you look at when you talk about restorative justice is you're trying to find a space to have these conversations, right? So you want to be able to create a brave space, right? A brave and safe space where you feel the person who's been bullied to come and talk, and also the person who's bullying has resources too. We tend to forget that the person who's bullying, needs some type of support as well. So you want to have separate spaces for both of them to work in, and also within that restorative justice, creating a good platform within the education system. So you want to ensure that the education system has first again the actual physical space to have this education outreach campaigning. So ensuring that the school is campaigning, and setting clear policies on bullying. So first of all, they have a policy to fall back on in terms of whether it's reprimanding or things of that sort, or suspensions, however they do it, however they handle that policy. And then within that restorative justice, you have things you want to teach. You want to be intentional on the things you're teaching, like teaching assertiveness skills. Teaching most of the time, bullies are looking for someone who's perceived as being weak, either emotionally or physically. So you're looking to teach how you teach assertiveness skills, building self-confidence, also learn how to advocate for yourself and speak up. A lot of times in those situations, someone who's being bullied, it takes them several months or sometimes years to speak up and say something. And also having a clear modeling program or a campaign program in terms of for parents. So how to model in the right way. So how are conflicts being handled at home? So you have workshops talking about, handling conflicts at home, or what does the parent dynamic look like? Are parents yelling all the time, or are they battling all the time? And also learn the difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness. That's another thing too, especially in high school. Actually college too, a lot of students, they don't know the difference between what's being assertive or being aggressive. So that's a really important topic too to avoid talking as restorative justice classes. And also teaching students to document, keep track of these things that are happening. If someone's bullying you, keep track of it. Whether that's, mentally or with a pen or a pad, write down the dates and the times things happen. Because once you report it, they're going to ask, when did it happen? Where did it happen? Who was it? What they do? And you have all this written down. So really understanding those resources and peer support groups, having those spaces for support, educational awareness, and involving the school authorities and law enforcement based on the nature of bullying is really important to really incorporate in those restorative justice classes and whatever you teach for that education of the school.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Thanks a lot, Christian. I mean, you brought out a number of different, resources and thought patterns for folks to kind of consider if they find themselves in this situation. Certainly want to make sure you're documenting things, certainly want to make sure that you are getting in contact with the school administrative folks or counselors or even law enforcement if necessary. I mean, there are so many different situations that young folks find themselves in, and sometimes it can be hard. It can be hard to talk about. And that kind of brings me to my next slide. So I want to ask, one of our youth participants, Joel, let me ask you, why might a student not want to talk to their parents about being bullied at school?
Yeah, so I know sometimes, like, even within your family, especially with men and boys, they tell you that you got to be strong. They tell you that, either to fight with them or handle it on your own. I feel like that was a big thing. That was one of the things that, was told to me to do. So I'm just providing that as an example. But
Me too.
thankfully, like, I never, ever got bullied, but I did see a couple people that got bullied that were my friends, and I made sure to check up on them and be there for them when that happened. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks a lot for that. I can recall on my situation just briefly, I was told to actually fight this person. I was told to, go, and I was taken by my father to this person who actually didn't want to fight me because he was scared that my dad was there, which, probably wasn't the best advice, but nevertheless, that's kind of what some of the times what kids are facing at home. But, when we talk about teaching and understanding, it's essential for parents to really listen to their children. It's essential for parents to validate their feelings, take their concerns seriously, and they should also communicate with school and collaborate with educators to develop a plan to address the bullying that's happening. Teaching youth resilience and assertiveness skills, kind of like what Christian was talking about earlier, those are things that can also empower them to respond effectively to bullying situations. Okay, y'all. So we don't got a lot of time, but I want to jump into this real quick. So we're gonna put this Google Doc jam in the link, and we know that bullies act out of they give these behaviors to feel powerful or feel in control, but really what's going on underneath all of that? What might be happening in a bully's life that causes them to act this way? So I want you guys to write down your responses in the Google Doc right now. I see a bunch of bullet points. I see folks are chiming in. That's beautiful. So let's just drop some thoughts real quick. We're gonna try to do this in like 1 to 2 minutes. Could it be insecurity or low self-esteem? People do different things for different reasons. Is it learned behavior? Is it a lack of attention or a lack of belonging? Is it fear or is it an aspect of wanting to be in control? Sometimes people hurt people because they're afraid of being hurt first. Whatever that is, tell me what you guys think about that. Drop your thoughts into the into the Google Doc, and we'll go on from there. And I'll just kind of wrap it up as you guys are typing. I'll just wrap it up and say, bullying doesn't come out of thin air. It doesn't come from nowhere. It actually says more about the bully's struggles than the person that's being targeted. So when you begin to understand what's underneath, we can't excuse it, but it does give us tools to respond with accountability as well as empathy to help that person, respond in a healthier manner, relating to whatever it is that issues that they may be going through. But with that being said, I'm gonna pass it over to Andre, and we'll keep it moving in our next part of our conversation.
Yeah, thank you for that, Coach Crump. And as he mentioned, we're coming close on time here. But we have one more trivia question opportunity for you guys. And make sure your guys' response is going to everyone and not just host and panelists, because there can be some confusion there. So it has to go into the main chat with everyone so everyone can see it.
And don't respond until the question is asked. I see an answer already.
Yeah, there you go, John. Beating us to the punch. But the trivia question is, who painted the Mona Lisa? A, Vincent van Gogh. B, Pablo Picasso. C, Leonardo da Vinci. And D, Claude Monet. So go ahead, put your answers in, and we'll have a winner announced here shortly. The Mona Lisa, I think I have an idea who won it here. But I want to see who got it first. And the Mona Lisa, that's the picture that always looks at you. If you guys aren't very familiar with it, I'm pretty sure that's the one at least. The one, no matter how you look at it, it looks like she's looking at you because of her eyes or something like that. So yeah, this is going to be the last trivia question of the night. The answer is C. So Emily, you were the first one to answer it, so congratulations. You will be getting an extra $25 in a gift card, and thank you for joining tonight. And I'm gonna pass it over to Tex so he can close us out.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Coach Crump. Thank you to everybody else. So before we close here, y'all, just want to give y'all a moment to sign in right now. The form will close at 8:30 p.m. sharp. So we don't want anyone to miss it out. The link will be dropped in the chat. And as we wrap it up, I just want to give a special thank you again to all of you for joining tonight's pod at 7, and also to our mentors, peer leaders, and clinicians, and also our producers. My last words on this topic today is, remember, bullying is never cool. You always have the power to set boundaries, speak up, or support someone who's hurting. So be a shoulder for somebody, or if you see something, just say something. So don't be quiet about it, and make sure you also look out for yourself. And one last reminder, don't forget to sign in. Closes at 8:30 p.m. sharp today. So thank you all for joining today. The next pod will be on Wednesday, October 1st at 7 p.m. same time. And the topic will be navigating isolation and disconnect. That will be our next session. Joining in. So I know we are past 1 minute on time here. So I just want to let everybody know, stay safe out there. Take care of each other. And we'll see you next time. Thank y'all for joining today.